Good evening and welcome to another Journey Planner. This evening we have Sophia Antwi with us, all the way from Biggleswade. She's going to be giving a presentation on herbal remedies. So another beneficial piece of information that is useful for all of those that are looking to make that move to the city, out of the city and into the country, is to understand how we can utilize the herbs that are out there and what we can do, identifying them, utilizing them, etc. So we have Sophie, and it's going to be a very interesting presentation. So before I hand over to Sophie and allow her to introduce herself to us, just a reminder that you can also follow us on YouTube, where you'll find this live stream right now, or you can check back at YouTube in your own convenience, and watch the live recordings that we have of past series that you'll be able to watch, covering all kinds of aspects of country living and people's testimonies of how they've made that move and why they've made that move out of the city. You'll also find us on Facebook and on our website channel. So allow me a moment to hand over the time to Sophia to introduce herself before we begin our presentation this evening.
Hi, is it okay now? Hi. So I'm Sophia. Thanks for introducing me, Trevor. My name is Sophia Antwi. I'm a medical herbalist, and I have a strong passion for natural remedies. I'm going to go into a little bit of a background about myself and how I got into herbal medicine. I'll just share my screen actually, because it will help. I've made a little presentation. I'll just share my screen. Give me a second.
Sure. Are you about to kick off now?
I think so, yeah. But I'll introduce my background in the presentation.
Let's have a word of prayer then before you go
Thank
forward.
you.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, as Sophia shares her presentation with us this evening on herbal remedies and a little bit of who she is, where she's come from, I pray that we may all be blessed. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, let me just share again. Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen. Should be up. Can you see it yet?
It's not coming through yet.
Oh, Maybe it's loading.
There we go.
See it now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so as I was saying before, I'm a medical herbalist. I'm a qualified medical herbalist, and I have been practicing for about, I always forget the number of years now, but I qualified in 2015, so nearly 10 years actually. And so my background, I didn't always know about herbal medicine and natural remedies. I always, ever since I can remember, I wanted to be a doctor. So I've always been interested in the human body and the normal kind of process of becoming a doctor in the UK anyway. You know, you go to college, you study all the sciences, and then you go to medical school. So at the end of college, I applied for medicine, and I didn't actually get in the first time round. I didn't want to do anything else, so I didn't go to uni at all. I didn't go for like a second option or choice. I just took a gap year and had planned to reapply the second year. So within that gap year, this is where well, I was invited to start Bible study, and this is where I found my faith actually. This is where I met God, and it as time went on, I slowly understood why I had to take that gap year, because that's where God gave me a strong foundation in his word. And as well as understanding about, you know, the Bible and prophecies, and that the author of this Bible is the true, you know, creator of the universe, I also started to learn about the requirements that he has of us in terms of health and our bodies, and the beauty of, can I call it, equipment that he's given us, and how we are to look after it, and how he's placed certain things within our reach to help us take care of that body. So that was my foundation during that gap year. After that gap year, I went to university, I went to medical school, and it was a great year. I loved it. But at the end of the first year, just before I was to enter second year, I had this really strong conviction that perhaps this is not what God wants me to continue doing. Can you hear me still? Okay. Yeah, that perhaps this is not what God required of me, which was a really hard thing to hear, because you know it took a while to get into medical school. It was a lot of hard work, and you just don't hear of many people leaving medical school, and not really people. There wasn't really anyone that understood properly what I was going through and could give me an answer on what decision to make. And I don't think until before then, I don't think I've ever prayed so earnestly, but I did pray, and God led me to leave medical school. And I left not knowing exactly that I was going to choose herbal medicine as a career pathway and to get into. But a couple of weeks later, God revealed it to me, and I applied for a uni back down in London. And that's where I started my herbal medicine course. And I studied that, graduated in 2015, and I've leaving medical school, my biggest fear at times was that I'd regret it. And I guess that shows a lack of faith, because if God has brought me to that point, then I definitely wouldn't regret it. But that was the fear. But I can hands down say I've never regretted that decision. And I've learned so much. I've been able to help people in so many ways. And I'm just learning more and more about the beauty of what God has given us to help our bodies. So that's a little about me. I guess it's my testimony too. So it's kind of intertwined.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So today I'm going to just share with you some herbal remedies for home. They could be herbs that you've heard about already. And my plan is to use the common herbs that you may already have heard about, and that you see probably on your daily walks in nature, so that you can know how to utilize them. But a lot of the things that I will be sharing are things that you can kind of extrapolate to other herbs. So how to make certain oils and tinctures with other herbs, not just the ones that I go through today. So I hope that makes sense. But first, I want to kind of go through the importance of understanding how to use and make simple remedies. And the first, I want to share, I could share so much, but I'm going to kind of keep it short and just share a few readings. The first one is from Ezekiel 47 verse 12. So it says, "And by the river, upon the bank thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat, whose leaf shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months, because their waters they issued out of the sanctuary. And the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof shall be for medicine." And I know that in, I guess, the main instance, this is talking about or referring to, or I guess illustrating how God desires his people to do his work, how he desires us to go forth and spread that which he has given us to, in abundance to the world. But I know that God uses his words. He doesn't use words for no reason, and he chooses his words wisely. So I believe that we can also look at this in a sense, especially the last two lines on the screen. It says, the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof shall be for medicine. And when we look at, we'll go through more of the herbs and how we use them, but God has given us green and fruits and herbs and everything in nature for us to consume, for us to eat, for nutritive purposes, so to nourish us, but also for medicinal purposes to help to heal us when we need it, when we're sick. So there's also a couple of quotes that I want to share. There's one from Selected Messages. So it says, "God has caused to grow out of the ground herbs for the use of man. And if we understand the nature of those roots and herbs and make a right use of them, there would not be a necessity of running to the doctor so frequently. And people would be in much better health than they are today. I believe in calling upon the great physician when we have used the remedies I have mentioned." So here's Sister White. She's speaking about the use of simple remedies, and I've highlighted the key points that stuck out to me, but she makes a point that God has given herbs for the use, for the use of man. And she says that it's important for us to understand the nature of them. So the nature of the herbs that are around us, how they work, and then that will allow us to use them in the right way. And if we can do this, it means that we're not going to have to run to the doctor so frequently. She didn't say it at all. I do think there's always there's a place when we're going to need doctors and hospitals at times, but the frequency of which will definitely be reduced. And I don't know about you, but that's good in so many reasons, because to get a GP appointment, and maybe everyone's GP is different, but it is very hard. If you've got a problem, it's so hard to see a doctor straight away. And if you do, you can often only go with one complaint, which is kind of crazy because everything in the body is connected. So usually you might be suffering from several ailments and they need to kind of be looked at together. And you're probably able to only see them for 5 minutes. And I often would leave the doctor's office unsatisfied and not really, I guess I leave the doctor none the wiser than when I went in there, or even a bit more confused. So I guess if we can understand how to use remedies in the right way, then we wouldn't have to depend on a system so frequently that sometimes or often fails us. So that's a really good thing. And also, just in terms of when we do go to the doctors, you often get a prescription for a drug medication. And sometimes those drugs have bad side effects or negative side effects. So the less often we have to use those, the better. And we can treat ourselves at home. And just to kind of add to that is the fact that our purpose and our aim is to move out of the cities into the countries. And coming from the city, if you've lived in the city and lived in the country, it is sometimes harder to access emergency services within like an easy, a good, agreeable distance, if that makes sense. So it's important for us when we can treat ourselves to be able to do it with ease. And I like the bit that she mentions at the end. She says, I believe in calling upon the great physician when we have used them, used the remedies. And it just goes to show, or I want to make the point here, that the herbs themselves don't have the healing powers, if that makes sense. But God has healing powers, and he bestows them upon us through these herbs. So it's important that when we use these herbs, that we call upon God to bless, the remedies that we have chosen to use, and that they would work. And one of the reasons why God directs us, because I believe that he's trying to increase our faith. Our whole Christian walk is about God increasing our faith in him and having a closer walk with him. And when we're using these remedies and calling upon him to bless them and make them work, and we see that, the great outcomes, it should increase our faith in him and what he has given us. So the last one that I wanted to read is similar to the previous one. It says, the Lord has given me some simple herbs of the field that at times are beneficial. And if every family were educated in how to use these herbs in case of sickness, much suffering might be prevented. So what stuck out to me here was the every family part. I'm a medical herbalist, but my passion is teaching people. I believe that we might not all have a practice and see patients and treat people on a day-to-day basis, but we should be able to use the simple remedies for ourselves and our families, that a lot of the suffering, as it said, might be prevented. So I just want to go on to what a herb is, the definition of a herb. Throughout this presentation, you'll hear me use the word herb. And oftentimes when people think of herb, they just think of, in a culinary sense, like the sage, the basil, your thyme that you use in cooking. But when a herbalist, and especially, myself, when we're referring to herbs, it's any plant or part of the plant that can be used for healing. So it could be, so here we've got some ginger, which is a root. We refer to that as a herb. We've got some marigold or calendula, which is a flower. We refer to that as a herb too. We have some fennel seeds here, some peppermint leaves, some frankincense resin, and some cinnamon bark from the cinnamon tree. So these, even though they're different parts of plants and they're not like the herby plants you get in cooking, they are all referred to as herbs, and they all have medicinal benefit. Let me just have a sip of water. Sorry, I've got a bit of a sore throat and a cough, so staying hydrated. So herbs can be used in two main ways. I look at herbs, or the use of herbs, as food and as medicine. And that can kind of be seen in when and how we use the herbs. So I think that about 70% of the time we should be using herbs in a preventative manner. So this is often in the form of foods, of teas, and I always kind of sum this bit up as little and often. So for example, nettle tea. Nettle is rich in nutrients. We'll go through nettle later, but it's rich in abundance of vitamins and minerals. And I would often take a cup of nettle little and often, because you're nourishing the body with the things that it needs to operate in the way that God has designed it to. And you're, I guess, preventing loads of ailments that could come about if you lack in those nutrients. So using herbs in a preventative way, in this sense, you don't necessarily use it like in a regimented way. You might have it one day, you might not have it the next few days, and you might have it again. You don't usually have it in really strong doses. You have it in the way of food. And then the next way of using herbs is a restorative way, or to cure certain ailments. So when you're using it in this way, you would be a bit more regimented. It will be like a certain dose, maybe 3 times a day. And usually it will be a little bit more potent in nature, because you're using it treat an actual ailment when it's come about. And the reason why I use a diagram like this is because this kind of preventative and restorative or food and medicine, there's often a big overlap in I guess how we use them, because none of us are necessarily in always a great state of health. We all have our, what can I say, our weaknesses or our soft spots. You know, some people might not have the best digestion. Some people might often get low in iron. So if somebody is low in iron, they might drink nettle tea more than the average person. If somebody hasn't got great digestion or is prone to digestive weakness or indigestion, they might have or drink bitter teas a little more often than the average person. Does that make sense? So that's the two ways, the main two ways we use herbs. So now we're going to go through some common herbs as medicines. As I said, you probably know a lot of these herbs, but I hope I can kind of introduce more aspects to them and how you can use them in your daily lives. So the first one is nettle. So it's stinging nettle. I'm sure you've all come across stinging nettle, and I'm pretty sure you've probably all been stung by stinging nettle before. It is a nasty sting. And often people look at nettle as a weed because it is really abundant. Once it grows everywhere, and it can kind of take the place of things that you might be growing for food. But nettle is such a powerhouse of nutrition and medicine that I can never look at it as a weed again. So nettle is the part of the nettles that we use, mainly the leaves, but the roots and the seeds can also be used. So the benefits of nettle, it is, as I said before, nettle is a powerhouse of vitamins and minerals. It has things like iron, calcium, vitamin C. So it's very nutritive. We often would encourage people that are overcoming sickness, women that have just given birth, or women that are pregnant, people that maybe have not been eating a good diet for a long time, to help to give them a good nourishment. So nettles are really great. They often come about in the springtime, and during the winter time is when we've eaten a lot of, I guess, heavy foods, and sometimes like a lot of starchy foods and carbs, foods that are not necessarily rich and concentrated in vitamins and minerals. So nettles coming about in the spring is a great opportunity for you to kind of seed your body with lots of those nutrition, with lots of that nutrition. It's also a herb that helps to encourage the production of breast milk. So if you're a mother that is just giving birth, drinking nettle tea can help to encourage good milk production. It's great for arthritis. It's great for gout. As I mentioned before, it's great for anemia, iron deficient anemia. It's got anti-allergic properties and antihistamine properties, so it's great for hay fever and other allergies too. And it's good for skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis. And it's a good diuretic, so it helps to I guess reduce the water in your body. So great for people that have high blood pressure and other things of that nature. So that's the leaves. The root is great for, it's got one main indication, and it's for BPH, so that's benign prostatic hypertrophy. Great. So it's not, I guess some people might mix that with prostate cancer. It's not cancerous, but it's just, I guess, a growth of the prostate. But nettle root is a key indication. Nettle root is strongly indicated for BPH. So that can be harvested, the root, in the late autumn time, and then summer, late autumn, and then it can be kind of chopped up and dried, and you could use that throughout the year. Also, the seeds, this is kind of not as common as people would, I guess, know the leaves for. The seeds are very nutritious, so they're also rich in vitamins and minerals, and they're actually a tonic. So if you suffer from, I guess, a lot of fatigue and burnout, and if you're highly stressed, the seeds can be really nutritious for you and beneficial. And the seeds are on about 50% of the plants, because you have the male plants and you have the female plants, and the seeds are on the female plants. So if you can see in this picture here, the seeds the seeds come from the flower heads. So after the spring, in the summer, the flower heads start coming. That's when you stop picking the leaves. The leaves you pick in early spring when they're fresh and tender. And then when the flowers start coming in, that's when the leaves, I guess, are not as nutritious. But that's when you can start harvesting them for the seeds. They're ready to harvest when the flowers, as you can see, they kind of really droop down towards the spring. And you can either harvest them and eat them fresh like that, and they're really nutritious and kind of nutty, or you can harvest them. And all of what I'm saying when I say harvest nettle, you're using gloves, just as a disclaimer, because it can sting you. You're using gloves. You can, if you want to dry the herbs to use throughout the rest of the year, you just harvest the top third of the plant. So just chop it off, the stem. You can chop off a few, then you kind of bring it home, turn it upside down, kind of hang them together and let it dry for 3 or 4 days. And once it's dry, you can kind of just cut the flowers off, pull it through a sieve. So the seeds are really small and they'll come out through the sieve, and then all the kind of dead material will be left on top. And you can just store that in a glass jar, and you can add it to teas. You can cook with it. Anything that you'll use seeds for normally, you can use those nettle seeds for, and they are rich powerhouse. And I guess if you're hungry in nature and you know you're walking and you have nothing to eat, chomping on some nettle seeds will be good for you. So you can use nettle leaves in soups. So when we looked at the food or the preventative kind of way of using herbs, you can use herbs in a similar way that you would use spinach. So you could steam some young fresh nettle leaves. Once you steam them, or once you dry them or squash them, they don't have stinging power anymore, so they're safe. So steam them thoroughly, wash them, steam them thoroughly, and then you can kind of just add some lemon, a bit of olive oil and salt if you want, and eat them like you would eat spinach. You can use it in soups, or you can dry the herb so you can use it throughout the rest of the year as well, and then use it for tea. So that's nettle. The next one we have is a herb called plantain. So I'm sure you've seen this on your walks. If you're acquainted with nature, you have to have seen this. This is like one of the most, I think, behind dandelion, this is one of the most common herbs in the UK and throughout Europe, actually. And there are 2 different types that you'll see. You'll see one with long leaves like this, long, thin leaves. We call that ribwort plantain. And then you'll see one with kind of wide leaves like this, and that's plantain major. They're both similar in their effects, and you can kind of use them interchangeably. But you would normally, to recognize it, you'd see these long stems with a flower head on top, and then the leaves kind of grow at the base in a kind of circle around it. So that's how you would recognize it. And the part that we use medicinally are the leaves. They're rich in mucilage. So mucilage is something that, if I can compare it to something, okra, that kind of slime that you get in okra, or even oats when you make porridge, the slime, I call it slime, that doesn't sound very nice, but it's that mucilage, that gooey material. A lot of herbs are rich in mucilage, and this is really medicinal. It's great because it's great for sore throats. It's great for any inflammation of the throat, of the whole digestive tract, even the urinary tract. So any inflammation, any of those systems, having plants that are rich in mucilage, like plantain, can be really soothing. If you can imagine, if you've got something like heartburn, for example, and the acid is coming up your esophagus, having plants that are rich in mucilage, like plantain, helps to coat that esophagus and helps to coat the inflammation and soothe it, and actually can promote healing. So that's what plantain does. It's great to take internally, but it's also great to use externally. to make, you can make it into a poultice for any cuts and wounds. So if you're on the go and you need to make a poultice, just rip it up and squeeze it up, and you'll get a lot of juice from the plantain. And just to go back to the nettle, actually, when you get stung by nettle, people tend to go to the dock leaf, but the plantain leaf is what you want to go to. It is very rich in like anti-inflammatory properties, and it's alkali. The nettle stings are acidic, just like a bee sting, for example. So you want to have something that's alkali to balance out, to neutralize that sting. Rub it on your nettle sting and you'll see instantly that it stops stinging. So you can use that for cuts and wounds and bruises. You can make it into an oil. And I'm going to show you how to make an infused oil shortly. So you can make it into an oil. You can cut the fresh leaves, or you can use them, you can keep them at home and lay them out, let them dry, so you can use that throughout the year too. But they're usually able to be harvested from the spring right throughout the summer season. Yeah, you can also use the heads, I think, to eat. The flower heads, if you can pick them, and you could, I think, I have never tried it, but you can I've seen people do it, saute them, and they kind of taste a bit like mushrooms. So again, this is one of the edible plants you can use if you are lacking food. So that's plantain. The next plant I'm going to go through is dandelion. So this is one of the most common weeds that people I guess complain about. A lot of people try their best to eradicate dandelion totally, but dandelion always prevails because it is very hardy. It's able to survive in like the most harsh environments. So dandelion is one of my favorite herbs because you can use the root and the leaves, and they kind of do similar things but different things. So the leaves are a great diuretic. They're great for the urinary system. So if you have a urinary tract infection, if you are retaining fluids, if you have hypertension, dandelion leaves are great to drink. You can also eat them. So when the fresh young leaves come up in the spring, cut them, obviously from a place that maybe from your garden, somewhere that is clean, but you can eat those and put them in salads. You can also steam them, again, similar to nettle. The one thing about the dandelion leaves, though, is I guess if you've got high blood pressure, you will know that a lot of the medications that you have, they obviously are diuretics. And when you lose water in that way, when you're going to the toilet often, you're losing a lot of potassium as well. And potassium is really important because that is one of the key nutrients for your heart health and for your circulation. So though your blood pressure medication might be trying to keep your blood pressure down, you're actually losing key potassium that is needed for heart health. But dandelion helps to, it is diuretic, so it gets rid of that excess fluid, but it is so rich in potassium that even when you drink dandelion and you've lost fluids, you've got an overall net gain of potassium than if you hadn't drunk it. So it is, God is another, just, I guess, I see God in nature. I see God, he has got so much wisdom that he foresees these things, and he's put all of the potassium that you need in that plant. So this is another instance where it's best to go for a natural herb as opposed to the drug medication if you can. You can also use the roots. The roots are more geared towards the digestive system. So it's a mild laxative. So if you suffer with constipation or indigestion, the roots are great to use. It's also a great liver tonic. So if you've got jaundice or any other problems with your liver, or lack of bile flow, then dandelion roots are great to use. You can collect the flowers and dry them. Sorry, the flowers and the leaves, you can collect them and dry them for a tea all year round. You can actually collect the flowers when they just blossom, and you can make them into food. So you can put them in salads, you can batter them and kind of lightly fry them, and they make great kind of fritter things. So this is another way you can use all parts of the plant. Also, the dandelion, the stem, if you cut the stem, you would see that it has like a white latex kind of thing seeping from it. And that's actually good for warts. So if you've got a wart, pop the latex directly onto the wart and be persistent with it, and it will soon help to clear up the wart. So that's another way you can use dandelion. Yeah, so that's a great way to use dandelion. Let me just go on to the next one. I think I got the slides a little bit messed up, but okay, let's go to chamomile. So I'm sure you've all heard of chamomile at least before. It's a great herb that is great for calming the nervous system. It's got a great reputation for a sleep remedy, and it's the actual flower heads that we use. If you've ever smelled chamomile, true chamomile, then I'm sure you love it. A lot of people say they don't like chamomile tea, and that's probably because they've just had one from a tea bag. But if you don't like chamomile tea, I would definitely implore you to try the loose dried chamomile herb and brew a fresh tea from that and say whether you like it or not, because it definitely tastes much better. But it's good for inflammation of any part of the body. It's great for allergy, so it's anti-allergic. It's good for digestive system. So if you've got any bloating, or if you're, because it's good for the nervous system as well as the digestive system, usually those two systems go hand in hand. So when you're upset or stressed or, grieving, usually your digestion can be interrupted. So having chamomile, it can work on the nervous system, but also works on digestion. So if you've got like butterflies or a nervous tummy or nervous diarrhea, etc., chamomile is great for that. Chamomile is also great for the whole family. Kids are really do really well with chamomile. Chamomile was actually what I used when I had my baby. She would often cry in the nighttime. I think she had poor, colic. And I didn't know what to use with. Well, I had all these ideas in my head, but I guess being a new mum, it was really hard to kind of execute everything. But I did come across some chamomile water at home in my medicine cabinet. And I just started using that in her mouth. And I call her a chamomile baby because since birth, she's been on chamomile. She now drinks chamomile tea. When she has some skin problems, I bathed her in chamomile. Literally, chamomile can be used for the whole family and is great for everybody. And I think it's something that we should always have at home, whether it's in a dried form, if it's in a form of if it's fresh flowers, which you can use straight away, but to keep it to use throughout the rest of the year, it's important to dry them and store them safely that you can use when you need to. It's great for the allergy season now, so it's anti-allergic. It can help to reduce your hay fever symptoms. And you can also make a bath with it and bathe your eyes with it. If you've got like itchy eyes and swollen, inflamed eyes from hay fever, you can bath your eye with the chamomile herb. And then you can actually bath in the chamomile itself. So particularly good for kids if they're restless, if they've got any skin conditions, if they're upset, if you just want to help them sleep at night, bath your babies and your kids in chamomile. You could just make a strong tea and then pour it into their bath water. And it is really good. I'm also going to show you something to make with chamomile after. I'm just kind of watching the time. This is elder. I'm sure you've all come across elder. I say that for every herb, but I'm counting on that you guys have seen these herbs before. So this is, again, one of my favorites. It's a herb that it gives you what you need when you need it. So in the springtime, when people tend to suffer from allergies and hay fever, the flowers are present, and the flowers are abundant, and they help to reduce your hay fever symptoms. So they help to reduce a lot of that congestion in your nasal passages. They help to get rid of some of the mucus, and they help to relieve head colds and then great for fevers too. So in that time is when people, I guess, they come about when you need to call on them. So you can harvest the elderflowers. You can use them fresh and make teas and cordials, or you can dry them so you can use them when you need to. I'm a fan of drying herbs because you can't always use everything there and then, and it's good to have them for when you need them. If you have a fever, or if your child has a fever, some lukewarm elderflower tea is great, and you can mix that with some peppermint and some yarrow if you like. Make it as a hot tea, let it brew, and then once it's cooled down to like a lukewarm temperature, feed that to your child or yourself, even if you have a fever, and it just helps to gently encourage sweating. We don't like to completely bring down fevers because fevers are good, but we like to control them and just kind of encourage the body to do what it's trying to do. So having elderflower tea is great. In the winter time though, or I guess the late fall, the late autumn into going into the winter, that's when the berries, sorry, I say the late fall, the late summer going into early autumn is when the berries come about. And this is the time where it's getting cooler. We're going into the winter months where we tend to get sick. We tend to get colds and flus. And elderberries are very antiviral. So they are, some people tend to get the flu shot on a year-to-year basis. And oftentimes the flu shot is pretty useless. It's hard because there's a kind of a guessing game as what strain's going to come about this year and what shot they need to make. But oftentimes elderberries have been seen to be able to benefit in that season. It's been able to benefit against the strain of flu that is about in that season, which makes sense because it's growing in nature. I guess it knows what's about. So having elderberry syrup or elderberry tea from this time throughout the winter, it can really be beneficial to kind of protect you from the flus in winter. So it helps. You can take it in a preventive way, take a teaspoon a day, for you to be able to, I guess, reduce the likelihood of you getting sick. But you can also take it in maybe 3 teaspoons a day when you're sick to kind of encourage you to get better quicker. So I wish it was time for elderberries to be harvested, because I would have shown you today how to make a syrup, because it's really simple, really easy, tastes really nice, and children will drink it with no problem when they're sick. So I don't know if there are any questions, because I was gonna just show you a couple of practical things. But if there's no questions, I can always continue.
There are a few questions that have come through.
Yeah, should I?
One is about any herbs that you can recommend on and how to take them for high blood pressure, and the same for when you're suffering from a toothache.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good idea. So I'll do the toothache first, because that's just come to my mind. But I think, I mentioned that there are some herbs that I think we should always have at home. So chamomile is one of them, and elderflowers, but also clove oil. Clove oil is hands down something that we should always have at home, simply because it's antiseptic. It's great for cleaning any infections and mouth infections, but it's a great what's that word called, analgesic. So if you've got a toothache, and toothache, I think toothache is the worst pain in the world ever. I don't know if anyone's experienced worse pain before, but toothache is really bad. And I've had a terrible toothache before, and I've had to use clove oil, and it does work really effectively. And it's kind of twofold, because it's not just numbing the pain. You put it on the site of the tooth that's hurting. It's not just numbing the pain, but it's a lot of essential oils are quite antiseptic, and clove oil is one of those. So as it's numbing the pain, it's also offering its antiseptic or anti-infectious properties. So if it is an infection or inflammation that is causing that toothache, it's helping to kind of clear up the problem in that sense too. So I would always definitely put some clove oil there. I would also, if it is the possibility for you to see a dentist, I would sometimes recommend it, because it might be a deeper problem. But going to a dentist doesn't mean you have to take the medicine or the antibiotics that they might prescribe, but it's sometimes good to know that it's nothing more sinister. But if you use the clove oil, apply that several times a day, just put a drop of the oil on like a cotton bud, and then you can apply it to the area. And I would also recommend oil pulling. So I don't know if you've heard of oil pulling before, but I tend to use coconut oil. So coconut oil is really, it's antifungal and anti-inflammatory, and just gargle or pull with that several times a day. So you get like a teaspoon of coconut oil, put it in your mouth, and it will melt pretty instantly. And just swish it around your mouth for 10 to 20 minutes for as long as possible, and then spit that out. And then you can kind of add the clove oil onto that area and
Mhm.
do that for a few days until the toothache starts to ease up.
And what if your dentist has told you that you need to have a root canal? Would there be any herbs that would be able to mitigate against that as well?
So what do you mean, like to stop you from having to get a root canal, or to help you through the root canal?
Um, Maybe first to prevent, and
Yeah.
then maybe if you've had the root canal, then
Yeah.
what after?
So yeah, root canals is a techie thing because like they're not supposed to be good. I think I've had a root canal before, and I haven't seen any problems, like after effects, but they're apparently not supposed to be good. I have heard of people having great benefits seeing natural dentists. So like you can see a regular dentist that works in a conventional way. There are such thing as natural dentists. It is They are private, so you do have to, I guess, pay more to see them. But I think I know. I've been told of a few. I can get that information and pass it on to you, Trevor. Maybe you can share it or put it
Sure.
in the description.
Yep.
But I would say so in terms of trying to prevent, I guess good oral health is important. So I think oil pulling on a daily basis. If you have severe infection in your mouth, you can uh do like a mouth gargle with some essential oils. Some of the essential oils that I would include would be things like clove, cinnamon. Cinnamon is highly antiseptic. Frankincense and myrrh essential oils, and possibly lavender too. So you could do like a combination of a couple of those herbs, and you can pop them in. I'm trying to think the best. You can use the coconut oil as a medium to kind of gargle it around your mouth often. Or you can just add them to a tiny bit of water, and put that in your mouth and gargle with it for a good amount of time. What you want to do is you want to allow the oils to come into contact with the I guess all the tissues that might be inflamed, that might be infected. But yeah, in terms of root canals and being able to avoid them, I can't say I know exactly how that is the case yet. I hope to kind of look into that in the future and see if there's any ways that they can be avoided. But yeah, a natural dentist is what I would recommend for now.
Okay, that's helpful. And then going back to the high blood pressure, what
Yes.
kind of natural remedies would actually help so you wouldn't have to be dependent on the medication that
Yeah.
they
So
give you?
the first so yeah. So the first one, what I would definitely recommend is hawthorn. Not sure if you've heard of hawthorn before. It is, again, it's another one of those shrubs that are abundant in the UK. You can find hawthorn kind of maybe on hedgerows, and yeah, I'll get a picture of it actually, but it is um
Small red berry, right?
yes, it's
That
small
is
and berries.
usually most hedgeways in the UK have them
Yeah.
growing. Yeah, okay. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
So
Again,
how do
it's
you take hawthorn to help against that?
so in the springtime, spring, summer, you will see the flowers bloom. So the flowers are kind of little white flowers, and you can harvest those and the leaves, the flowers and the leaves. And if you leave some of the flowers in the autumn time, they will turn into the berries. So the leaves, flowers, and berries are all beneficial. to use, so you can harvest a bit of both. But you can make the flowers and the leaves into a tea and have that as a tea and drink that a few times a day. You can the berries you can kind of make into a tincture. So I haven't kind of gone through tinctures today, but tinctures are basically herbal extracts, but you have to use a bit of alcohol to extract the herbs. And you can either make the berry tincture, so the hawthorn berry tincture, or you can make berry leaves and flowers in the tincture. I think doing all three is great. So you would preserve them in alcohol for 4 to 6 weeks, shaking it daily. And once the 6 weeks are up, you would strain that, and then that will be your tonic. So that's a hawthorn tincture.
And that's not the regular alcohol you're talking about.
So it's what you need 40% alcohol. So
That'd be
it's
like ethanol, not ethanol. Is it ethanol?
not ethanol, I think. So some like when you buy tinctures from, I guess, like the shop and the health shops,
Mm.
they're like when they're made industrially, they might use like I guess a special grain tincture, a grain alcohol. But to make a herbal home alcohol, you would use an actual plain, if you can get all like organic and natural alcohol, even sounds really bad, a vodka. Um, it
So
is,
like a spirit, those high
yeah,
potent things. Yeah,
exactly. So it has to
right,
be high enough so it has that preserving action. So it's able to pull out the medicinal properties in the plants and also able to kind of preserve that. So once you make a tincture, why it's really good is because it can last you for many years. And then you can have it in your medicine cabinet and just call on it when you need to use it,
right.
if that makes sense. So yeah, that's why that's hawthorn is one of the ones that I would definitely say to harvest. In the springtime, just harvest the flowers and the leaves though, and do dry some of them. So then once they're fully dried and they're crispy, you can put them into a jar and you can drink that tea throughout the whole year. But hawthorn is definitely, like, anyone with any heart problems, including high blood pressure, definitely I would call on hawthorn, because it's like the heart herb. And if you to treat high blood pressure, I would sometimes recommend doing a mixture of herbs. So hawthorn, yarrow is also a good one, dandelion leaf. Trying to think of some things that come to my head. Lime flower. Sometimes stress is an aspect of the high blood pressure. So using herbs that kind of reduce your stress, like lime flower or passion flower, those are important as well, if you know that stress is one of the factors that affect your blood pressure. And you can mix these herbs together and make a tea and drink that daily. And I've treated a lot of people with high blood pressure before, and if they're consistent with the tea or a tincture, they're able to see reductions in their blood pressure, or they're able to not go onto blood pressure medication if they were told by their doctor they need to. They've been able to avoid it, if that makes sense. But consistency is the key.
Yeah,
And being hydrated as well. Sometimes doctors, I don't know if they still do it, but if you've got high blood pressure, they kind of recommend that you don't drink as much water, because I guess you're increasing the water pressure in your body. But being dehydrated is actually more likely to affect your blood pressure negatively than being well hydrated with good water.
right.
And one more thing that isn't a herb, it's a supplement, but magnesium. Magnesium is really important. We are in the UK, where most of us are deficient in magnesium. Even if we eat good foods, the soil is really poor in magnesium. So a lot of us need magnesium, but especially if you've got high blood pressure, 100% being on a high potency magnesium is important.
Did you also mention earlier when you were talking about nettles? Did you also mention that nettle was also good for the managing high blood pressure?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nettle's one of them as well. That slipped my.
Okay,
So nettle is a good diuretic, so it can
yeah.
help with blood
And
pressure.
what about garlic? Is that a good,
Yeah,
um, would you call that a herb or a plant
yeah,
for
I'll
for this?
definitely call it a herb.
Okay, yeah. So how would you use garlic if you were to use that as well? Because
So garlic, it can be used, I would say, using it definitely increase it in your food. So whatever food you're having, add garlic to it. Towards the end, when it's cooked, having raw, like slicing some raw garlic is really good to include in your diets because garlic's not, it's good for the whole circulatory system, but it's also anti-inflammatory and it helps to decrease the likelihood of, I guess, the negative effects of long-term high blood pressure. So, the building up of the arteries and the stiffness of the arteries, garlic is good at preventing that. So having it in your foods daily, you can use garlic in a lot of the raw things you might make. So like pestos and salad dressings, use garlic in abundance. You could also use garlic, I guess, in a more formal way if you get capsules. So you can use the garlic powder. You can either make capsules yourself or you can buy capsules, garlic capsules. So it's got the powder in there and you're just taking those like a few times a day. So it would, I guess, bypass you having to eat so much garlic. If like I know there's a certain level which might start irritating your stomach, especially if you're eating on an empty stomach. But having it in a dried capsule form can also be beneficial too. But it's good at just like preventing that the sclerosis of the arteries.
I see, I see. And also, you referred to the elderberry syrup. So
Yeah.
how long does someone's asked the question, how long does the elderberry syrup last once you've made it?
Um, I think I don't think I've ever kept it that long for it to go bad. Um, I normally keep it in the cupboard, but if you want it to last longer, you can leave it in the fridge. It will definitely last throughout the winter season. That's for sure. So it would, if you make it in the autumn time, once you've harvested it, it will definitely last throughout that whole winter season. I would say at least 6 months, I think. It could
Okay.
be longer, but I don't want to say and then.
Yeah. So how would you, I mean, I know you said you didn't have no berries to give us a demonstration, but could you talk us through the steps of how you would actually do it
Yeah,
when the berries
sure.
do come?
So when you get the berries, go harvest it with a pair of scissors. Just cut the kind of droop. Let me go back to the picture. Oh, there it is. So you would cut the stem that has the droops there. So you'll just go home with a lot of those, heads of berries. And you can freeze them there and then. You can wash them and freeze them because if you might not want to make them straight away, you might want to have them throughout the winter. So freeze them on site. So wash them and just put them in a bag and freeze them in their whole clusters like that. If you're going to use it straight away, just you have to take some time to pick the berries off of the stem. You don't want to include too much of the stem, because the stems do contain small amounts of cyanide. So do the seeds of the elderberries. So that's why we cook them and make them into syrup. So it's not harmful to us anymore. So you
Mhm.
pick the berries and you just take some time. Maybe you can listen to something while you're picking them because it can get quite tedious because they are small. You can also use a fork to kind of rake through them, which might help them come off quicker. And especially once you've frozen them and you take them out the freezer and you're going to use them again, they usually come quite easily with a fork. So you can do that. Pop them into a pot, or you can use a double boiler, or you can use a slow cooker, and you put them in with some water. And I like to add things to it. So I like to add some cinnamon to it, maybe some clove, the little clove um, fruit buds. You can add some, what's that thing called again? Star anise. So these things are like these aromatic herbs like cinnamon and clove. They're really antiseptic and they're great for colds and sore throats and stuff. So I tend to add a few of those things to the pot. You let that decoct for I guess you're gonna have a certain amount of water and you want it to reduce and become a little bit thicker, and you until maybe it's about half, and you have a certain you have much less water than you started with. And once you've decocted that, that's called a decoction when you let it on a low simmer
Mhm.
for a few hours. Then you would strain that, so you'll discard off the berries and you'll just have this rich red liquid left. And then to that, you would add some honey, some raw, pure organic honey, mix that in. Once all the honey is, what do you call it, dissolved, kind of mix into it, then you'll decant that into your storage. So whether you're using bottles to store it or jars, you'll decant that, and that's it. That's your elderberry syrup. And because of the honey, the antimicrobial properties of the raw honey, that it helps the keeping power of the elderberries, the
Right.
syrup.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
that's elderberry syrup.
Yeah, that's very helpful. One other question is, when you collect your herbs,
Yeah.
how do you dry them, or what do you use to dry them? So I know you said for the nettle you just gather up a bunch and hang them upside down and they'll
Yeah.
dry. But for other things, is it just the same principle? Just hang them up somewhere and they'll dry, or do you need to
Yeah.
use something to make
So
them dry so they don't gather mold or spoil?
yeah, so some people have dehydrators, which is a quick way of drying herbs. You can kind of lay them flat on the dehydrator on a really low setting. Some people use, which I don't really, some people use their oven on a really low setting with the door open. And that's another quick way of drying them out. But it's not a way to do it naturally without those things. It does take a bit longer, a few days. But if you've got a room in the house that hasn't got direct sunlight in, a little bit of sunlight, indirect sunlight is fine, but direct sunlight, what you can do is get a table and lay out a cloth, so a tea, like a dishcloth or a muslin cloth, and lay out all your herbs flat. So I've got some sage here, for example. You've got like a sage leaf, you'll lay that out flat, so you'll put them all in a single layer. So they're not kind of on top of each other, and that prevents like the mold and it starting to compost or self-compost, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you want the room to have good air circulation, because that's what's going to help to dry out the air circulation. Uh, and a room that you can crack a window from time to time would be great. But in a few days, you'll go back to it and you'll see that they will start losing moisture. And when they're kind of like crunchy or crispy, then you'll know that they're fully dried. And you'd be able to see if it's gone moldy or not, especially when
Mm.
they're all laid out in a single kind of file. You can also, like, when it comes to like some herbs, like for example, lavender. It's a great time to kind of harvest some lavender. I just chop the stems, and I do tie the bunch of the stem and just hang it upside down in a similar room that is not got direct sunlight. It has got good air circulation, and it can kind of just stay there, and they will then again get crispy and dry, and then you can just
Mhm.
put them in a jar and store them in an airtight container.
Right.
I don't I no, I don't. That's fine. Yeah. So yeah, that's how you dry your herbs. I think, was that the only question that you asked just now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was just it. So you're going to do, I think, a demonstration or something,
Yeah, do I
or
still
talk us through.
have time?
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe,
yeah, yeah.
maybe I'll just do one of them that I was gonna do, depending on how like long it takes. But I was gonna show you how to make an infused oil. I
Okay. Yep.
mentioned using infused oil. So you can make an infused oil from so many things. Plantain is, one of the herbs that I said. That's a great infused oil to make. So you can make it from the fresh plantain leaves. What you would get, you would harvest the leaves. I would dry it out for a day, maybe. So they're not necessarily dry as crisp, but they're wilted a little bit. So they've lost some water, and then you'll pop that into a jar. And I'm going to show you how to do it with chamomile, but it's the same, I guess, the same method. So you can make an infused oil if you need it there and then, like right then. You can put it on a double boiler, and you can pop it on the pot on a really low heat and just let it infuse for a few hours, and then that's your infused oil. If you've got a few weeks to do it, you can do the cold method, where you pop some herb into a jar, you fill the rest up with the oil, and then let it sit for 4 to 6 weeks, shake it often. And once you strain it, then that is a rich oil. A good way that I like doing and what I've been doing lately is if you've got a slow cooker or a crock pot, some may call it, you just put that on a really low heat. And then you fill your herb jar, you fill your jar up. So this is chamomile. This is dried chamomile leaves. I'm going to make a chamomile infused oil, and that's really good for any sore skin conditions. If you want to make a salve from it, so you have at home in your first aid kit for like cuts and bruises and stuff, then chamomile oil is great to a great one to make. So you'll just fill your jar up here. So I would fill it about 1/3 of the way. I've definitely gone over, but yeah, about 1/3 of the way, or half of the way. And then you add your oil into the jar. So I'm gonna use avocado oil. Olive oil is a great one to use as well. I do tend to like avocado oil because it's not as potent as olive oil. Olive oil has a strong scent and taste, which I don't mind, but sometimes, especially if you're making something that's really nice and aromatic, smelling like chamomile, you want that smell to come through. Avocado is a nice neutral oil to use. And also I guess avocado oil is very medicinal in its own right. It has a lot of vitamins in there, and it's very nourishing for dry skin conditions. So I tend to use avocado oil. And what you want to do, you want to fill the jar up, as you can see here, so that the oil covers all of the herb. So I tend to just fill that jar up to the top. And if you're doing this with fresh leaves, say for example, fresh, what do you call it? Fresh plantain that you've allowed to sit for 24 hours to kind of wilt, you'll do it in the same way. But what you would do, you won't cap it at the end. So this is chamomile, this is dried chamomile. What I'm going to do now, all the herbs are covered, they're immersed in the oil. I'm going to cap this, and then I'm going to place it into my slow cooker. So I'll just get the base of the slow cooker out. So as you can see, I've got a slow cooker here, and I fill the slow cooker up about halfway with water. So it covers about half of the jar. And then what you can do, you can also put like what's that thing called? Like a tea towel at the bottom of the base of so inside the crock pot. So immerse it in the water. Then you're going to leave that jar for about 24 hours, 8 hours minimum, but you can so tomorrow evening I can look at that and it will be ready. See, that will slowly, because it's on a low heat, it will slowly infuse the oil in a gentle way, not heating it too much and not damaging the properties of the herbs or the oils. What you want to do, you want to make sure that there's enough water in there that it doesn't kind of run out and it's kind of just got no water at all. So make sure there's enough water in there. And as I said before, if it is fresh herbs you're using, what you want to do, you want to avoid capping it. So leave it uncovered, because once it's kind of in the crock pot or the slow cooker for 24 hours, the tiny bits of water that are still present in the fresh herb will start to evaporate. But if you cap it, then the water won't have anywhere to go, and that's when you can kind of be presented with like mold and stuff, because there's still water in there. So because this is dried chamomile, it doesn't matter. I can cap it, and especially I want to keep the precious oils of the chamomile inside there, so I cap it. But fresh plantain, you'll leave it uncovered to allow the water to escape. So that's really simple. You can make a herb oil from chamomile. Calendula is a really good one. So anything that helps to soothe the skins, and you can make into a first aid kind of thing. 1 second, sorry. Sorry, I've got a sore throat. Forgive me. Sometimes when I start coughing, it's gonna continue. So sorry about that. I might just mute 1 second so I can cough.
Sure.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. And so can you do this with any herb. So yeah, I could do the same with nettle. I could do dandelion leaves or
Mm.
flowers.
So yeah, you can do it with any herb, but I would say you want to do it with a useful herb. So a herb that has properties that are useful in oil.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So herbs that have, sorry, healing properties for the skin. So chamomile, calendula, plantain, comfrey leaf. Comfrey is so abundant. It's another abundant weed. Comfrey leaf is really good to use as a oil. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Um, but yeah, those are the main skin oils that you make an oil from.
Mhm.
You could also make it from like food herbs, so like thyme
Right.
and foods that you might now start using internally. So if you make a thyme oil or a garlic oil, then you can use that nutritively. So on your foods and your salads and your salad dressings, you can make it in the same way as that. And once you have made the oil, I'll show you. So this is an oil that I made before. It's calendula oil or marigold.
Mhm.
And it's really again really rich for really good for skin conditions and healing wounds and things like eczema and psoriasis. And you can use the oil as is, so you could just kind of rub that on your skin. But I tend to use it as the base for like making salves. And to make a salve, I'll kind of talk you through that. Simple. You literally just add beeswax to it. So in a double boiler, you'll put the beeswax, let the beeswax melt, then add the oil. Then once it's all kind of mixed together and dissolved, you pour that into like little glass jars or containers, and that's your salve. It just makes it a bit easier because sometimes it's hard to kind of travel with the oil. It can probably leak everywhere and it's a bit hard to apply. But as a solid salve, which has got the beeswax to kind of make it solid, then you can carry that anywhere. You carry it camping. If you're going out for walks and you might get like stings or anything like that or cuts, then having a salve is really good.
Mhm. So if you were to infuse the, say for example, the garlic into an oil, do the same properties that are in there that deal with like heart pressure, blood pressure, and all that kind of stuff, are they also in that infused oil as well? Or
Yeah. So what I would do is f- you would just I guess in either cut the garlic or make incisions in the garlic while you're doing it. And yeah, those properties would be in there.
okay. So
With
just bruise the garlic when you make that salve,
yes,
and
well, no, not the salve, the oil.
I mean the oil, sorry, the
Yeah, yeah,
infusion.
exactly. The only
Right.
thing you would tend to kind of use that more
For
or less,
food.
yeah, food and kind of
Yeah.
quicker. So it wouldn't have the same keeping power because of the garlic, it's fresh. It's got a water content in it. You
Hmm.
could make the oil with it uncovered, but with something like garlic, any aromatic herb, so like lavender, garlic, chamomile, you want to kind of cover it because it keeps those essential oils in. If you heat it up while the cover's off, the essential oils kind of escape, and a lot of the medicine is in the oils. So what you want to do is cover things like garlic and chamomile, any of those strong smelling herbs. But things like plantain are fine because you're not
Hmm.
really using it for the essential oils because it doesn't really have any.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
I see. I see. Was there another demonstration you had for us, or?
There was, but I might let me see if I could do it. I had some chopping to do, but I thought I might have had more time. But I'll kind of just again show you the bits and kind of take you through it. So the second one that I wanted to show you is called an oxymel. So that's Oxymel. So that's two words. It's got oxy, which comes from the word acid,
Okay.
and mel, which is honey or sugar, something sweet. So it combines, it's a medicine that is extracted using apple cider vinegar and raw, like organic honey. And again, it's a way for you to be able to make the herbs and preserve them for you to use throughout the winter. So oxymels are great. You can make an oxymel from literally any herb. there's a kind of a common one or popular one that people know as fire cider, where you add like ginger, garlic, turmeric, and
So,
yeah, because it's really warming, and you make it in the autumn time so you can have throughout the winter, because it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to
right.
infuse, and you have it throughout the winter. So I made one in the spring, and it's with nettle and cleavers. So these are great spring tonics. I did just come across it. I actually forgot about it, but it's an oxymel. So it's nettle and cleaves, and these were fresh herbs that I use. So you can make it from fresh herbs. Um, so this is the one that I made before, but how you'd make it, you literally just fill the jar with a third full with your herbs. The
Mhm.
one that I was going to show you today was going to be sage leaves and ginger. So
Okay.
ginger is really good for sore throats. So is sage. They both have kind of antimicrobial properties. So if you start to make this, towards the end of summer, then you'll have it throughout the winter. And if anyone that you know in the family is suffering from a sore throat, you can take a teaspoon of this. You can add some to like a warm water to have as a hot drink. You can even use it on your as a base to your salad dressings. So sometimes when you make salad dressings, you might use a little bit of vinegar or like apple cider vinegar or lemon. You can use that as a base and then add your olive oil and your a bit of salt or bouillon to it. So again, it's like using the herbs in a nutritive way, a preventative way, but you can
Mhm.
also use it in a medicinal way if you do get sick or if somebody does get a sore throat. So what I would normally do is chop up the sage leaves, and then chop up the garlic, slice it thinly, and just pop it in there, a third to a half full. Then you want to put in equal amounts of apple cider vinegar and honey. So I would just fill up half the jar with the apple cider vinegar and then fill up the rest with honey. Give
What
it
kind
a
of honey are you using? The raw honey or
Yeah, raw
okay,
honey. The raw honey is good because it has its own beneficial, medicine in it.
right.
And it's also good for keeping power. So once honey is cooked and stuff, the antimicrobial kind of preserving power is destroyed. But if you have raw honey, then you have that kind of preserving power in the honey
Mhm.
itself and the medicinal benefits of it. And you just give it a shake, give it a mix, make sure all the herbs are, covered, and then cover it. Well, if you've got a metal lid, you want to probably put like a bit of baking paper or something before you put the lid on, because you don't want the vinegar to come in contact with the metal lid because,
Right.
it was a reaction. So once that is kind of sat down for 6 weeks or so, then you would strain it. You would use like a cheesecloth strainer or a muslin bag or a nut milk bag, strain it so all of the bits come out and you discard of the herbal material, and then you're left with the liquid, the kind of sweet sour liquid, and that's what you bottle, label it so you always know what it is, because
What it
sometimes
is. Yeah.
you think you're going to remember and then you don't. You're going to have to throw it away. So label it and label it with the date, and then you can just use that. And again, these are things that you've made beforehand, and then they're going to be available for when you need it. So it's like a herbal first aid kit at home,
Mm.
rather than trying to make it at the time that you need it, because that
Yeah.
can be a bit of hard.
Because it seems that these things, just like if you were to utilize the plants that God has made to treat your ailments, it takes time for it to have its impact. And it seems like it takes time for some of these things to be made or prepared. They're not necessarily instant.
Yeah,
So you need to
exactly.
prepare in advance so that you're ready, you've got something on hand. And like you
Yeah,
said earlier, preventative measures where it's little and frequent and not necessarily on a regular basis, but it's little and frequent. You may miss a day here and there, but it's still
yeah.
doing its having its impact.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm definitely I'm reaping those. You do reap what you sow, because I think since November, around the time when the winter set in and we turned our heaters on, I started to get asthma symptoms, and I've never really suffered from that before.
Right.
Started to get asthma symptoms, and I started wheezing, and it was quite bad, especially at night time, and coughing. And then it kind of got better, but since then it's kind of been up and down. And I advocate for being consistent with herbal remedies and making sure you do, like you said, the little and frequent. But I wasn't. I guess I got caught up in life and looking after a little one and stuff like that, and just not
Yeah.
really focused on myself. But I can see that it's gotten worse, and that coughing fit that I just had, it is all a part of these asthma symptoms that I need to now, because I've let it set in more. I have to kind of be really regimented and I guess tackle it even more so because I didn't stay on top of it. So, like you said, the little and frequent and being consistent in those things are really important.
Another question that's come through is how do you use the dry comfrey root or comfrey root, the dried ones, the dried comfrey root?
So the comfrey root, I would tend, it's hard. It's a bit of a, and not, I don't know if it's controversial, let's say, because a lot of there's been a lot of press on comfrey itself and it having um certain, I guess, certain things in there that are bad for our livers. So I don't tend to use comfrey root internally. I only use the leaf. So I would always harvest the leaf, and the leaf has great properties too. I would always harvest the leaf and make that into an oil. Or also, and then when you have the oil, you can make that into a salve or a cream. So I don't tend to use the root internally.
Okay, okay. And you just mentioned you would also turn that into a cream. So you've taught us how to do salves
Yeah.
and tinctures. Um, I don't know if you've got enough time to just briefly explain how you turn that from whatever into a cream.
Yeah. So with a salve, it's only fats, it's only oil. So you have the oil and then you have like the, I guess, the solidifying agent, which is the beeswax.
Yeah.
There's no water at all. So there's no chance of it really going moldy or anything like that. It's quite, you don't really need a preservative as such. It's quite safe. With a cream is an oil and a water, a liquid mixed together, and it's held together like by in an emulsion.
Hmm.
So if you know, like for example, mayonnaise is an emulsion. It's water and liquid together. So it can be a bit harder to make. But whatever cream I'm making, I tend to make a liquid phase, so a water phase, and an oil phase. So the oil phase would be the comfrey oil, for example, that you make, or the plantain oil, or the chamomile oil. But then the liquid phase will be the tea, so a strong brewed tea of that same herb. So
Ah,
be a
okay.
strong chamomile tea. And then what you're going to do, you're going to start to whip them together, but you want to add like an emulsifier. You can usually buy emulsifiers like from like online, these natural shops that sell things like beeswax and things that
Hmm.
you things with. You can get an emulsifier and you need to add that because it helps the oil and the water to mix, because naturally
They
oil and
won't.
water don't mix.
Yeah.
Then you slowly add the water phase to the oil phase while you have like a hand blender
Hmm.
while it's being whipped really quickly. You'll slowly add it together, and as the more you incorporate, the more you whip it, then it will start to come together and look like an actual white cream. And that's those, I find creams are really good for like when you've got conditions that are hot. Some people might have eczema that is really raw and red and hot, and creams can be really cooling, whereas salves sometimes can be quite warming. So
Right.
if you've got
Right.
something
Right.
that's really hot and angry, having a cream can really nice like cool that, because I guess with the water aspects of it is cooling.
I see. And you mentioned that the cream is kind of white. Does that mean that any cream you make from the oil will come out white,
No, actually, no,
or
that's
do
a
they change color as you mix it? And it
yeah, no,
depends on
that's
the emulsifier.
exactly, no, that it all depends on the color of the herb actually. I
Ah,
said white, but what I meant was opaque, for
okay.
example.
Right, right,
If
right.
you're using, for example, not calendula, the cream will be a little bit orange. If you're using plantain, it makes a beautiful, when you do try making the plantain infused oil, it makes a beautiful green color, really lovely and rich, especially if you use fresh plantain leaves.
Hmm.
And when you make the cream, it is really it's green basically. So it all depends on the herb that you're using. That's what color it will be, but it will go opaque. So where is the oil?
So the oil would be a rich, dark color. The cream that you make from that oil would be more. lighter, like a pastel or something like that.
Yeah, I guess it would no, it would still be quite green,
Yeah.
but you've mixed it with a bit of like the water and the emulsifier and stuff, so it might slightly be lighter, but it will still be green. But
Okay.
it will basically be whatever color your oil or that herb is. So when
Okay.
you look at the oil, it's kind of still translucent.
Okay.
It's rich
Right.
in color, but it's translucent. But when you make the cream, it goes like opaque
Right.
as opposed to translucent. Yeah.
Okay. I see. I see.
Yeah.
Understand. Now that's been very helpful. I'm not I'm just checking if there's any more questions.
Yeah, sure.
I don't see any other questions coming through, so I'm assuming that there's no other questions. And I think it's been very, very interesting, the presentation that you shared with us. So I think it'd be very beneficial to have you back again in the future. If
Oh, definitely.
whenever you got some time
Mm.
to come back and take us to the next level of herbal remedies.
Yeah, hope
Um,
do something more like more practical, just kind of fully
yeah, yeah,
maybe some elderberry syrup, etc.
yeah, yeah. Some demos would be very beneficial, seeing how it's actually done
Yeah,
and being able to ask questions and see the final product,
yeah.
etc. Um, one last question is, if somebody is interested in pursuing going down this route as a profession,
Hmm.
what would you recommend them do? Because I mean, you mentioned how you were interested in medicine, and it's because of um, not getting in first couple of times, and then having that time, God sort of spoke to you and led you down a different route.
Mm.
For somebody that is interested in this kind of work,
Hmm.
what would you recommend, and how would you recommend they go about pursuing their interest in this?
So I would definitely recommend starting with a few books and seeing, I guess I guess it's testing your interest because sometimes you might
Hmm.
have an interest in it, but choosing it as a career path or going down that fully, you want to make sure you're going into the right thing. So I'll definitely get a few books and maybe go to a few taster sessions. So there are some places that do like taster courses. I think the College of Naturopathic Medicine is one of the colleges that do taster sessions that you could try. And it just kind of gives you an insight into that world.
Right,
But books would do the same thing too. But if you are willing, if you are wanting to go to it as a, as a career, you would to be qualified, you'd have to go to do a professional course. So you can either do one at a university. I went to Middlesex University to do it, but since then they have closed down their course, and so has Westminster. But there are a few places that still do it. The College of Naturopathic Medicine is one of them
mhm,
that do it. There are a few other courses that are online. I say online, but they're partially online. Uh you have to do some in-person training. So you have to be present at a clinic and see patients, and you have to do like I think 500 hours or so training of doing that sort of stuff. One thing I would say, or one thing I would, I guess, warn against or encourage if you do come across it, though God has given us herbal remedies, for his glory and for his for drawing us closer to him and increasing our faith in him. A lot of herbal medicine these days is steeped in a lot of, I guess,
right, yeah,
spiritualism and
hmm,
witchcraft and Eastern traditions and things like that. And you will come across some of that in whether it's you might not necessarily be taught it because I'm glad that I went to uni that was really scientific based. So it wasn't the teachers weren't necessarily teaching that, but everybody's individual. And then you have classmates that a lot of people are into that sort of thing. So it is important to be able to sift through what you're learning and have that strong foundation in the word of God and what he requires. So I think it's unfortunate that in any um place you go to, you're going to have a mixture of that sort of thing. But
hmm,
that's why I think it's even more important for us as Christians to study these things and to become professionals, because it's important for people that want to see a herbalist, that they have Christian herbalists to go and see that are going to have that strong foundation in the principles of God rather than the opposite.
right,
So
yep.
Hope that
I see.
helps. Hope that's
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah, yeah. And what books would you recommend for
Uh,
to test your interest?
I would recommend, can I just give me 1 second? Let me just reach a
Yeah,
couple
yeah, sure.
and get some. Um, so I've got a couple, just I can show you more, but I've got a couple. This one is called Neil's Yard Remedies, and it says cook, brew, and blend your own herbs. So that's a really good practical one. It's from the Neil's Yard Remedies. So it goes through a few of the common herbs we have here in the UK and how you can use them as teas, as creams, as ointments. It's really good. That's one of the first herbal books that I got actually. This is also a really good one. This author, Rosemary Gladstar, she does a lot of practical herbal medicine making. She has this beginner's guide to medicinal herbs. Again, she goes through a lot of the herbs in detail and how to use them. And she's got like recipes for certain things. So kind of what I was going through tells you about the herb and then what you can do with it. She's American based, but a lot of the herbs they can be used in the UK too, or they can be found in the UK. And this author has got a few other books too. I think she's got a male herb also, completely for like male tonics and male diseases or things that they might or ailments.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think those two books are good books to start with. And obviously this one, so I'll just go through this one. This one's called Medical Herbalism.
Okay.
It's by David Hoffman, and it's just really good. It's quite an old book, but really good for like the beginner. And it goes into a lot of the science of as well. So if you want to know exactly why some of the herbs work, this book is really good. And then this one, I think every home should definitely have this. This is a natural remedies book, which a lot of people have seen, but it
Yeah.
has got lots of like A to Z of different ailments and how you can use them. And it's important to, I always tell people, I'm a herbalist, but I'm not, I don't only use herbs. I think it's important to look at God's health laws, you know, the sunlight acronym.
Mhm.
Anytime that we're sick, even if we're not sick, we should go through each of them and see which ones we're keeping and what we're not. There's no point if we're like not well and we're not drinking enough water, we're not sleeping properly,
Yep.
we're not getting movement, then I think there's only so much herbs can do.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that's why I really do like this book, because it makes sure we go to the health laws that God has given us as we utilize the herbs around us.
Excellent. Thank you very much for what you've shared. Oh, one last question has come through, or request. Someone said they've looked on your website and saw that there's a junior herbalist club.
Mm.
Um, Maybe you can just explain what that is.
Yeah, sure. Oh, good. I wouldn't have mentioned it, so thanks for bringing that up, actually. But the Junior Herbalist Club is, so I think, as I said, when I went into herbal medicine, I knew nothing about herbs. I was from the city. I didn't know plants could even heal. So I think I've got a passion now to teach children. I think it's important for us to teach our children how to use these things, even if they don't become herbalists, but they're growing up with a basic understanding of how to look after themselves and treat regular everyday ailments. So Junior Herbalist Club is is exactly what it is. It's a club that is it's a course for people, for young children aged between 7 and 12. If you're slightly younger or slightly older, you're able to join as well, but it's kind of aimed at that age group. And it's a year-long course. It happens once a month, and the session is an hour and a half long. And throughout that whole year, it's 10 sessions. They learn about a new herb every session, and every session they have a worksheet that they take home and that we go through. And we really get into the practical makings of like herbal remedies. It's a really good one because they don't just learn about herbs, but they use things like science and maths and things like that as they're learning about the herbs. But it happens in a really fun way. So the learning is very passive. They don't really know they're learning. If they've been in school all day or been like learning maths and stuff like that, they don't really want to go from school to school. So it's something that they can have fun enjoying, but each session is accumulative, like it builds upon the knowledge of the last session. And by the end of the year, the 10 sessions, they get a certificate and they graduate, and then they're able to go into year 2. So there's 2 years at the moment. And then they can learn another set of herbs and have more skills and go into a bit more depth in the second year. Then they graduate, and then they've got like it's actually an accredited kind of course,
Okay.
yeah, from the National Institute of Medical Herbalists.
Oh, wow.
So it's really good for young children, because I think it's important for them to know how to use herbs, and it's really fun as well.
Yeah, that sounds very good. So if they want to find out more of that, they can go to your website, which is www.sophiatheherbalist.com.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
there's a link in the description for this live stream on YouTube. So if you hop across there, look at the details, you'll find a link to the website, and from there you'll find more information about Sophia, how to reach out to her and get in touch with her, etc., and benefit more from taking charge of your health.
Yeah,
And like you said on
100%.
that first slide about using God has put into the environment that we live in on this earth herbs for man's benefit,
Yeah,
to minimize the amount of time we have to be spending running to the doctor.
exactly.
Yeah,
100%.
that's really great, Sophia. So thank you very much for taking the time to share with us this evening. We hope we can get you back on in the near future to take us to the next level of herbal remedies. So would you like to close for us with a word of prayer?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for, first of all, being with all the technology today and for helping everything to run smoothly. And I want to thank you so much for the gift of herbs that you've provided for us. Lord, you have all knowledge and foresight of the things that we would have to face, and the things that we would have needed, and you've placed it there right in our environment, Lord. You've given us the ability to have knowledge and to learn from others. And in these remedies, Lord, these remedies are to point us to you, to bring us into a closer walk with you, to increase our faith in you, and to depend upon you. And just like the children in the wilderness, Lord, depend on you with the manna that you rain down for them. In like manner, we are supposed to do the same with these remedies. So as we learn more about them, help us to always attribute those to you, Father God, and help us to be able to share this knowledge with those around us and with those in the world, that you may be glorified, Lord, and not the herbs themselves or not ourselves, but you. I pray that you'll be with us throughout the rest of the evening, and keep us safe, and send your angels to watch care over our houses. In your name I pray, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Once again, thank you very much, Sophia, for taking the time to share with us round 1 of Herbal Remedies. We're looking forward to round 2. And we'll be back next month, first Sunday next month, with another presentation on the practical aspect of making that move to the country and how we can support ourselves when we get to the country. And even, I mean, with the presentation we have had from Sophie, we don't need to wait till we're in the country to start our natural remedies. We can actually start them now, wherever you are. So once again, Sophie, thank you very, very much for taking the time.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you again for watching the Journey Planner SDA. Remember to subscribe, like, and share the links to our YouTube and Facebook broadcasts. See you at the next episode.